Gonna proc it now. Gonna proc it now. By Jackson Aurelia. Jackson Aurelia. Gonna proc it now. Gonna proc it now. Proc it. Jackson Aurelia. T-Force.
Welcome to the rework of the T-Force. Now we going hard cause we bumping at the beat source. It's a 3-course dinner of dudes bringing the news and stats, interviews and casts from the pro scene. So fresh and so clean, like you're leaning with Nami in the bot lane. Keep it hot like brand, practicing his dot game. Give it to you easy like you're Resi in a bot game. Imagine Draven at prime time. Now ulti like LeBlanc can copy that 4 times, but manlier. Knock it up like Malphite planning a family-er. You gotta be tuned in like Sona on the ad wall. Get on the chat call. Can a podcast really be all that? Of course. How do 4 guys make a Triforce?
Hey guys, welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. My name is Adam Ponophobia Cogswell, and I am your host for this evening, joined by all 5 people? Oh, Days, you don't have your camera on. That's what's weird right now. I was like, why does the overlay look really funny?
Because
we
were so close.
Days' face.
It's like when you look at somebody with their eyebrows shaved. There's something wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Hey, there she is.
Oh, there she is.
Now. Yay.
You know what? You should probably pull that microphone just a little bit closer to your face. Just a little mouth. Just like, there you go.
Better?
Oh, yeah. Now we sound good. Like we said in the previous, we had a little bit of microphone issues, but Days is on the podcast now where microphone is sort of working. At least she's able to
Backup
talk.
plan.
That's right. That's what we have backups for. So we'll start. Days is here.
Hi.
Chira.
Hi.
DeClaude.
Hello.
And Punch.
Hey, everybody.
And we are all brought to you here by Prolific Games, who has an awesome Kickstarter going on right now for Flapjacks and Sasquatches, the Cup of Joe expansion. If you go to bit.ly/T-Force game, you'll find the Kickstarter that's already been funded. However, you can still get this base game or the base game and the expansion for $40. Plus, the more money you give to them, the more stuff you get. Like, you get some awesome dice to use with the games, like extra expansion stuff, extra cards. The more people that back the project, the more cards that they'll add to the game, the expansion. So there's a bunch of really cool stuff you can do by helping out their Kickstarter. There's like, 6 days left of it as of Wednesdays. It ends on the 15th. So 5 days, really. So get out there, back this bit.ly T-Force game. Like I said before, we played this on Saturday night or Friday night, and there was a lot of screaming and yelling, and we were like throwing cards at each other and like, why are you making me do this? I don't have, like that type of thing. Like, I don't have any cards. I'm not chopping trees. Why are you stop? Like just it was silly. Like, we're just. So if you really want to have a really fun game to play, guys, Flapjacks and Sasquatches, you can see it in the live stream. Go check it out over at our YouTube channel. Very fun card game. Lots of cards to play. bit.ly/T-Force game. So there is that. I guess one other thing is just to remind you guys, I'm going to start reminding you now that over Christmas, we are going to be switching name servers for the podcast. That means the week of Christmas, there will be one single podcast. However, you might not get it, or you might get it late, because switching name servers can take up to like 24 or 48 hours, and there can be a bunch of really weird stuff. You're going to be like, why is it not updating in iTunes? I'm going to go complain. Well, it's because we're doing it for Christmas. We're switching to getting the stuff ready for the T-Force network. The big stuff coming in the new year. So
it'll be there. Be patient though.
Mm-hmm. You got it. It's the internet. I can't control the internet as much as I want to. Okay. But so there you go. That's the intro. We're gonna push right into patch 4.21 discussion because this patch is gigantic. It's like go ahead.
Pretty big.
Oh, I thought you had something to actually say, Punch. You made noises, and I was like,
no, I was excited to talk about 4.21.
Go for it.
He's used to us talking over him, so I thought if he just made a noise, it would sound like he's trying to participate.
It's the mind games. They're already starting.
Right.
He might have just had a brain aneurysm or something. I don't know.
Well, he has been drinking bourbon, so he's probably a little silly right now.
I said huzzah. I thought that was a common excited phrase.
Will you, next time like something like that happens, like we're doing this, will you turn around and hit that gong?
Yeah, you want me to do it right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, do you have a...
Wait, we're going to wait for it. We're talking about patch 4.21 discussion.
That was so much better than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah, that was way louder than I thought.
Was that too loud? I'm sorry.
No, it was great. It was perfect.
I want you to have that like as close as you can. So when we say, and this is the Trinity Force word, dong.
I'll work on that. I need to get a larger desk so I can actually fit it over here, and then I'll do that for you.
Right. And take your shirt off when you're doing it. I need you to have your shirt off when you do it too. Like you flex the camera. And you go,
Adam just wants to see you shirtless. It has nothing to do with the dong at all.
Yeah, no, yeah, please.
You're gonna have to pay him more to get the shirt off.
I'm going to get you a bigger gong.
A 100% increase in salary.
Yeah, which would still be nothing.
Start a Patreon and make that one of the step rewards.
A bigger gong for Punch.
And his shirt coming off.
All right, let's talk about patch 4.21. So, the first time I went through this patch, I was like, okay, this can be a small patch. And then I started reading. I'm like, wow, this is taking forever to scroll. And I'm like, just tons of stuff. So we'll start with the champion changes, move into the tower changes, the Baron change, to everything. And we're going to get through it all tonight, whether we go an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't care. We're getting through this entire goddamn patch in one night. So first and foremost, right at the top, Azir, just a bunch of bug fixes across the board. Fixed a bug where it's possible for targets to walk out of range of the soldier's attack with his W Arise, and causing the animation to play, but no damage to happen. I can't say I ever saw that bug, but I'm sure I ran across it.
Yeah,
They're still fixing bug fixes. What, 3 patches after they started fixing bug fixes? Yeah. So like, and this isn't, I'm not hitting on Riot or anything like this. This is a champion with a whole lot of bugs. Like, they've been working on it a really long time. They're still trying to whittle it down. I'm still tentative to even pick up and really try and learn him just due to that.
So much fun though.
We're addressing them, so.
And he was delayed at release too, so they had more time to fix bugs. But
he's
complicated
so
champion,
different than every other champion that they've released. So his mechanics and the way he works and things like that are just going to take a while to iron out. And I'm sure they've learned a lot through the things that they've gone through with him. Hopefully.
Yeah. Other than the bug fixes, they did add something where if you get a speed boost from his ultimate, you get an assist. As Azir, the ally speed boost.
Hugely nice.
Yeah, if you give your jungler a speed boost and he's Kha'Zix or whatever, and he jumps in and kills them, but you didn't do any damage, you got an assist. So worthy, and that's pretty much.
Well, I like the E fixes. The E is the one that I've been bitching about the most. Like, what was the one? Fixed an issue where shifting sands would fail to be queued up during a cast of W. That one was really annoying when you're trying to get out of lane.
Oh, when you're mashing, and you're like, come on.
Right. Well, I mean, trying to get back to lane, you would WQE, and you're supposed to follow the Q with the E to max distance, but it wouldn't get queued up properly, so you wouldn't fly the distance. And you guys probably heard me bitch about it at least once. I mean, I bitched about everything about this goddamn champion. So,
we bitch about you playing this champion too.
I'm playing. I'm playing the champion again. It is coming out against the next. No, I'm not going.
Please no.
Didn't you say that we were supposed to fire you if you played him again?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that happened.
I'm pretty sure those words were said.
I'm playing the champion again. Fuck you guys.
Oh, God damn it.
Now, what they didn't fix is W and Q if you press them at the same time. They have not fixed it, but are looking into it.
Right.
All right. Cassiopeia got some changes. She has some big buffs in this patch. Cassiopeia
did.
So her passive, now it's called not called Stack City, but they have the little flavor text. Stack City. Cassiopeia now builds stacks of Aspect of the Serpent once every 6 seconds, which is 10 times per minute. And for every second that an enemy champion is poisoned. In Cassiopeia, she used to do it on every poison unit kill or Twin Fang cast an enemy champion. So you gain stacks of your passive significantly more quickly because you're always gaining stacks.
Yep.
Yeah, and not only that, it allows you, instead of focusing your Q on, or your spells on last hitting minions, you can use that to zone and pressure the lane. Whereas before, you almost had like Nasus syndrome, where you had to just focus on farming, and this will let you be a little bit more of a force in lane.
Yeah, that all-in Cassiopeia 2 cheese that we talked about might actually be worth it to try now that you're still gaining passive stacks rather than.
At least you're not completely punished for doing it. And she's
gaining it at the start of the game because it's her passive. So it just starts ticking. So at the 10-minute point, if you haven't done anything to stack it additionally, you'll have 100 stacks,
right?
Which is the first bonus now. So they've upped the breakpoints to make up for this, but it's still faster than before.
Which is nice. Yeah, Noxus Blast fixed a bug where Noxus Blast delay wasn't actually normalized. Now it's a flat 0.4 second delay. It's funny.
I've noticed that. It was always
0.25 and 0.5.
Always felt clumsier than because I play Karthus a lot. So hitting that, it's like, yeah, what's going on here? So it'll feel long every time at least.
I actually like this. It's a nerf, but I think a buff at the same. It's a early game buff, late game nerf. So movement speed bonus to Q used to be 10, 15, 20, 25 leveling the ability, but now it's a flat 20% at all ranks.
Right.
So, but that also gives you a choice of maxing your W second rather than maxing your Q. Well, I mean, a lot of people max their Q first because it does extra damage, but really what I'm trying to say is you get actually choice now what you want to max. It's kind of like later with the Yasuo change with his Q, which we'll talk about. You can kind of have a choice of how you want to play your kit because if you invest 1 point in Q and you want to just Twin Fang spam and get people poisoned, say you have a rat or a singed on your team, you can start leveling that ability. So I like it. I like those type of changes where they don't hamper the champion, but give you choice.
Use it just to keep the poison applied, I guess.
Well, before it was maxing Q because it did the most damage. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but
right. But now, like you said, you get a little flexibility with that.
Yeah. And Twin Fang now adds a debuff on the target that amplifies further poison damage by 20% for 5 seconds. The debuff stacks up to 2 times, 40% total poison damage.
Now, will this have the synergy with Twitch and Teemo and stuff like that?
If it poisons them, poisons? Absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, it even says look at the synergy. Yeah, wow.
Not only that, but the ratio on that, it gives you some more early game power too. Now instead of starting at 0.4, now you're at 0.55. That's a big jump considering you only hit 0.5 at rank 5 or 0.55 at rank 5 before.
Coverage, yeah. Right. At the first rank. Now,
and with these changes, the cost going up/down, early game nerf, late game buff. It's another one of those E Twin Fang it's like another EQ type of thing where they changed it so you still have your choice because you're going to get that passive on somebody if you spam 2 Twin Fangs on them, as long as they're poisoned. So are you maxing E for extra damage or are you maxing Q for extra damage in lane? That one I didn't do the math on, and I should have done it before we got in here, but I like the flexibility it provides the champion.
Yeah, I'd like to see that math. 40% of rank 1 Q as opposed to what is it? Yeah, that doesn't actually increase at all. That 40% is 1 rank of Twin Fang, isn't it?
I was about to say you could 1 point wonder.
Yeah, you could 1 point wonder Twin Fang. Yeah.
So instead of like some people would max out Twin Fang just for the bigger, like instant burst that it provides, but now you're going to be seeing like a Q max with a 1 point Twin Fang, and instead of that instant Cassiopeia explosion, it's like, haha, you're Twin Fang, then now you're dying as you walk through your turret.
Plus, with the 1 rank, the incentive is you 35 mana rank 1 instead of ranking all the way up and having 75 mana. So, and then your items are still with the static ability power. Yeah, this is for me looks like a 1 point wonder.
I need to look at the
let's do the math.
I need to look at the actual damage scaling on it. I feel like I should have had this up before we started.
We should transition into Nocturne off of this.
Because of the change? Okay.
Yeah, because of his change. Nocturne, Unspeakable Horror. Nocturne now gains massively increased movement speed when moving towards feared targets. So with Cassiopeia, she has a synergy with other champions that have poisons. Nocturne, here's a Dom of this because he's been asking for this. Other targets that are feared by other champions, now Nocturne gets a bonus. He moves faster towards them.
Shaco boxes,
Fiddlesticks.
Yep.
He runs faster than them. It is worth noting that as long as if you're channeling your E on Nocturne, you do not gain the movement speed. It's not until they're actually feared that you gain the movement speed.
Right.
So.
When you're using it, but you're instantly.
This is a huge quality of life buff for him.
I was just gonna ask because I can't really look it up right now, but didn't Fiddle's Fear used to classify as a Horrify? I'm wondering if Horrify still existed in the game if they changed that to Fear back when they changed it from a 3-second CC.
I think they're all fears.
I'm pretty sure they're all fears now because they all run away from the point at which they're used on you.
Yeah, Terrify strikes target unit with fear, causing it to flee in terror.
Yeah. Good. All right. I'm cool with that.
I like how they listed in the notes. Many of Nocturne's spooky friends, Shaco, Fiddlesticks, Hecarim, Lollipoppy. I like how they threw her in there because she's pretty scary.
That's the scariest
face
art ever.
Yeah, it is.
Well, let's talk about Cho'Gath. I like this nice quality of life buff. This entire patch, I think...
It's quality of life buff.
It's a great patch. I didn't go through this patch and go, I hate any of these changes. And the entire thing, it was like, every one of these changes, I agree with. Okay, we're good. You guys go in the right direction.
I didn't like the Sejuani changes, then I saw the mana boost, and I was like, okay. And then I liked it, so I agree with you there.
Cho'Gath, Fear. Feast now has a 50%... Feast now has 50% of its cooldown and mana cost refunded if it kills a minion or a monster, but the cooldown has been increased at all ranks. So it rewards you for using Feast in lane to gain stacks.
Or in the jungle.
Right.
So you pretty much get 33% lower cooldown than it was before this patch, because it'll be 40 seconds. It's 80 seconds at all ranks. So
not only is it
used on a minion.
It's an incentive to feast, to build stacks, but it makes it much easier to hit stacks sooner, especially if you're in the jungle where you're safe and you might not be using feast all the time. If you're not using it to kill people, you can use it basically every time it's up, and you're fully stacked in a couple of minutes. Which a lot of that free health is awesome, especially on somebody who for the most part is building completely tanky. I really like this change.
Yeah, despite it being on his feast, this change is not nominal. It's actually pretty good.
Great. So Corky,
Yes, you could say
Corky's
that.
phosphorus bomb change. Mission speed has been decreased from 1,125 to 1,000. Well, have we come up yet? It's been like 400 podcasts. Have we come up yet with the unit and measurement that is speed?
For speed?
Yes.
No.
Because we have TMOs for length or for unit of measurement. What is speed?
I feel like we need to
hell of a
measure
drug.
this in Nidalee spears.
We should measure this in TMO.
Vel'Koz
Qs.
auto attack.
No, I can't talk about Teemo anymore. There's enough Teemo in this cast. we
TMO
can't
poison
do
darts.
anymore.
That's
Teemo
what we're going
quicks.
to. That's our new unit of measurement.
Yeah, that'll stick.
I think this is a really cool change because it
already
opens
seems
up
to look
counterplay
like-
for Corky, right? Which I like. I really enjoy when they do stuff like that. Yes, Corky's strong, but instead of going the obvious route of like, oh, nerf his damage, herp derp derp, they're actually adding a counterplay element so that it's much easier not only for ADCs with high mobility to dodge it, because they could already dodge this pretty easily. If you ever played Corky against Callista, have fun hitting that Q
God, it's
because
so
it's pretty
hard.
tricky. But now by reducing the missile speed here, they're making it easier for low mobility champions who would normally get crushed by Corky's like oppressive lane harass. Now they have a chance to actually dodge it. So I like this a lot.
And as a Corky player, I remember when they upped the missile speed on Phosphorus Bomb when they
Well, it used
reworked
to be
it.
instantaneous. It didn't used to have a travel
Right.
speed. So this is
Right, but
anyone
you wouldn't
who
But
see
also
it.
a shorter range.
Right,
Yeah, it was a
it
shorter
was.
range, and
they
it was
completely changed the way that it worked. in
Yeah,
general.
they made it a lob. This is going to be kind of slow, I think. I don't know.
It'll take
We'll
some
see.
getting used to. Yeah, we'll see. I'm
You have to lead 'em on.
hoping it's not too slow. And I don't know. I'm pretty confident that Riot wouldn't put out a
Do you
change
think
where
this
it's just
though
like
could take Corky out of contention for #1 ADC right now because
Yeah.
of his lane presence? I mean, I asked
think
that,
so.
and then I remember Lucian got a giant nerf in this patch to the point where he's probably going to fall out.
it's possible. Like I said, it opens up like mobile. Well, it opens up every character to play better against him in lane. But mobile champions are gonna have like an even easier time dodging Qs. And if they can do that consistently, then they can just harass him back, and that would be a solid way to just counter Corky and thereby taking him out of must pick every game. Because if you pick
Yeah,
Corky
and
early,
this-
they just pick someone to dodge him, like Graves or Callista. Then
Maybe
And
we'll
right
have an
now
extra
you're seeing
ban
a lot
against
of-
Cereal Box.
Right, and right now you're seeing a lot of immobile ADCs coming back, and Corky has a lot of lane presence and it's very mobile, so it's going to let those ADCs kind of stay in there against him and be a little bit more able to dodge it and to, try to avoid that harass early without having to go back to the mobility as a default.
Yeah, we'll have to see. In team fight's not going to matter as much, but in the pro play where everyone's really, really good mechanically, there's nothing you can do about a slower missile speed. I don't know if we're going to see him as much.
I mean, Corky players can always time their phosphorus bombs better.
Yep.
The obvious example was timing it when they go up to CS a creep. But
Right.
Time and then the center of it, so there's no way they can get out of it.
Well, more
Or
Q
it's-
is a 1200
Dax.
speed. So you take that with what is it, 1,150 or 1,125? I went down to Lucian, so in front of me. It's a pretty significant speed nerf to lob it up and over and down on the person.
yeah,
well,
I already thought it was-
1,000 now, yeah.
I already thought it was decently slow. So I'm pretty eager to try this out and see how it
Yeah.
feels.
It's just going to take some getting used to. I mean, anytime you have those AoE circular spells, it's usually pretty easy when you figure out when you watch your opponent they usually have some pretty standard ways that they move to avoid abilities, and if you just place it in that direction, then you can usually get a hold of them. So I'm not sure. I feel like Zyra, anyone who's played Zyra, I feel like her E is really, really slow, and that was 1150. So I can't imagine going down to 1,000. That seems really slow for me.
What's her ult?
Her ult, I'm not.
Because it's like a delay, you know.
It's
like
2 seconds. Yeah, it's 2 second
Pantheon's
delay.
missile speed was the Corki's new change one. I'd be okay with that, but
Well, there's it's not a missile speed on Zyra's ult. It's just a 2 second delay.
It's a time delay, yeah.
Well,
But
let's talk about Lucian then. Sorry, go ahead, Punch. Go.
I just want to say that keep in mind the Zyra's range on her E also comes into take that into account when you're judging missile speed, because if it's going a longer distance at a particular slow speed, it's going to seem like it's taking a lot longer, whereas this has a much shorter distance to
Do you
travel.
know what the range on
Depends where you're
his
casting
Q
it.
is?
On what?
Do you know what the range on
phosphor
Corki's
spawn?
Q is? Yeah.
I'd have to look it up. I think it's very close to his auto attack range. It's 550.
825.
Oh, okay.
Oh, just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're right
yeah.
though. I mean, that does make a difference. But a lot of Corki's strength comes from his missiles anyway, and the Sheen procs and things like that you can get off. So
True
I don't think it's
damage
going
as
to
well.
take him. Yeah, I don't think it's going to take him out of contention at all. I think this is just like almost like just a small buff to like some of the more immobile AD carries and things like that. It just allows them to lane against him a little bit easier.
They're making him less of a bully, just like what they're doing with Lucian.
Yes, thank you for the segue. Sorry, I have a dog running around outside. It's insane in this house right now. Lucian, so Dom and I'll mostly say Dom has said for a very long time that even a 0.1 AP ratio will take a champion out of contention completely. And it's really something that's a Trinity Force mantra, like a 1.1 AP ratio can either make or break a champion. Well, the passive Light Slinger, which is he gets his extra auto attack, now has a passive buff duration of 3 seconds, down from 6, which is just in that of itself.
It's just less
is a
time to
giant
use it, yeah.
nerf, because you can't just queue and stand around and
Right.
wait to use that extra auto attack. And the ratio used to be 0.5 attack damage at all levels for his second auto attack. It is now 0.3, 0.4, and 0.5. It is a 17% damage reduction at level 1.
See, now that to me is the biggest nerf on this. The buff duration, you have some control in playing with that. You have control to make it so that doesn't even matter. But the the ratio reduction at the early ranks, because passive you can't. What levels are it? It's 1 is 0.3.
6, 11, 16.
No, it's 1 to 6. and
Oh,
then
sorry,
6 to 11.
1, 6, 11.
Okay. So yeah, you got to wait till level 6 before you're still not up to what you were before. So
Yeah, this
gonna
nerf
feel that.
hurts Lucian a lot more than the previous two that were in a couple patches ago, because it affects or it directly impacts his ability to lane bully.
Right.
And I mean, that's what Lucian relies upon. Lucian needs to bully the lane so he can get ahead early and then carry that into the mid game, and because it doesn't do a large amount of damage late. So now there's not really a huge incentive to pick Lucian over any other lane bully, which is probably what they were going for. I'm just worried that, as opposed to now you have the option to pick Lucian or any other lane bully, now it might be, don't pick Lucian, just pick somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm worried.
I don't know.
I
Mid
hope
to
that's not
late
the
game
case, but-
Lucian, mid to late game Lucian though was virtually unchanged by this. So,
That's true. Yeah,
But
I mean,
it's
there's-
getting to that point.
But Lucian was never picked for his late
Exactly.
game prowess. He
Right,
was
he's
picked
not
for
a
his
hyper.
early and mid game. You know,
Yeah.
Yep.
his zoning ability, his lane bully ability, his ability to keep the enemy down so you can take more dragons more frequently. And with dragon being such a great objective, if you can take the first 3 dragons by 20 minutes with Lucian, and now that you've stopped Lucian being able to do that, why would you pick him anymore if he's not going to give you that ability to control the objectives that Riot has put into the game?
The thing about his passive change, and I don't think it should be underestimated, is that he gained a lot of zoning power from having that passive up if he didn't use
Right.
it. It was kind of like when Caitlyn gets headshot, you back off until she has to use it on a minion. And the same thing with Lucian. And he used to be able to do that for 6 seconds, and now he can only do that for 3. I mean, that's a major difference in if you're talking about trying to keep someone off of minions or, you know, trying to keep them away from you. That does make a big difference if you're playing them at, you know, a level where people actually notice your
Right.
That's a good
passive
point.
is
You
up
just
and
gotta
things like that.
play him differently now. More
Well,
of an
and
all-in.
if you look at it, every time you traded with Lucian, he got at least 3 more auto attacks off than you did in any trade. And at 0.5 AP ratio, that's, you know, we're looking at 50, 75 life or more that he's taking from you with every, you know, not with every audio attack, but just, you know, total over the course of that team fight. That 100 life could make or break it. We've said before, one damage can do it. I would argue that 100 damage is, you know, such a gigantic nerf that a lot of people are going to stray away from him, and we're going to see a few other nerfs, 80 carries along the line. He's going to eventually come back because of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think he's unplayable now, but I completely agree that he'll probably go away for a little while, and then eventually people will be like, why'd we stop playing Lucian?
Yep.
Right. So, well, we'll move back up here to the top of the list as I scroll way up. Diana getting a
Quality of life change.
quality of life change. Casting Lunar Rush on targets that have a Moonlight debuff will reset Lunar Rush's cooldown even if Diana is interrupted out of her dash.
And that is really nice because now that damage that you were counting on that could potentially kill somebody that's retreating, coming in, whatever, if you get stopped by a Jarvan
zero.
EQ or a zero or anything else, it's just like, okay, hit it again. You know? So
Yeah, quality of life. What's more to say about that? Fiddlesticks, which great changes. Really, this for me, it's Aram Fiddlesticks gets a huge change for this. Passive Dread, dealing magic damage or casting Terrify now applies Dread to enemies for 2.5 seconds, reducing the magic resistance by 10. He no longer applies Dread to all enemies within 800 range.
So you actually have to use abilities on them to apply his passive now.
Just one thing to mention, if you ever played against the Fiddle and you recognized all of a sudden that you walked near a bush and your magic resist dropped and you avoided a gank from that, you can't do that anymore.
Yep.
I don't think I ever paid attention to my magic resist walking to a bush.
You know what?
I've been saved by it a couple times. Yeah.
Really?
I have.
Yeah.
Just because that was the old way to do it. But I think I see this kind of as a buff because now that Dark Wind bounces all the way to the back line and you have someone else doing damage there. They got the MRD buff for a full 2.5 seconds.
Well,
so it's not like that you got to get within 800 range and you got to be in their face.
But also keep in mind that the first spell you cast is not going to get the benefit of that 10 magic resistance or
your
10
spell
magic resistance reduction.
Right.
But it'll help anyone else hitting him with magic.
But I mean, you would think that it'd be like the tick of that damage. So his drain, the first one might not have the magic resist reduction, but that second tick of it should.
In real life scenarios, the first tick of it is your first tick of your ultimate. Mm-hmm. Because you're jumping over a wall, the first tick now stops.
Where you'd be constantly applying it.
It's ultimate.
Yeah.
So you are losing damage with this dread change. Well, how much? It depends on how much AP you have, percentage, but like...
Right, when you're ulting.
You could lose. You might be losing 10, 15 damage.
Well, you would lose it on your first tick of whatever it was.
Right,
it wouldn't be that.
It's still a nerf because you're still losing damage.
I think
yourself.
that this affects support Fiddlesticks quite a bit
More.
too.
I agree.
Yep.
Because all you do is you hope for that RNG and you hope it to bounce between a champion and a minion like 4 times. And now that it's going to focus the different things, you have to be a little bit more cautious about when you're using it.
Right.
Because it's going to hit every single minion in that wave. So you really want to try to eliminate some of their minions before you use it.
I was about to say, now instead of like, oh, there's one minion left and the enemy AD carry and supporter standing right next to each other, you don't get that huge damage benefit that you would have otherwise. If there's more minions there or anything like that, they're going to bounce to everybody.
Right. Yeah, you really have to wait until they have less minions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about Dark Wind. Bounce.
Since we moved there.
Now prioritizes targets not yet hit by Dark Wind, which I think I've played more Aram Fiddlesticks against than I have like support Fiddlesticks, and even then I can understand how annoying it would be playing support. But before it would hit a target multiple times, you could be standing next to a minion and it would go bounce off that one minion on you, and you're like, stop silencing me.
Or the best is when like it just keeps bouncing between a support and AD carry, and it doesn't go to anything else if you're playing support Fiddle. Like, I don't know how many times you guys have had that happen if you've ever played support
and it resets
Fiddle.
the duration of the silence every time it hits you, too.
Yeah, so I mean, you're smacking the shit out of them. It hits pretty hard early, they're silenced the whole time. If you have somebody like Corki who can take advantage of a big burst when people can't get away, like that, you could really edge out an enemy bot lane in one RNG ability.
But
Right.
it says right here that what they removed part of Dark Wind,
Yes.
which prevented our target from being silenced more than once.
Yeah,
So it sounds
that's
like
gone.
before this patch, you could only be silenced once, even if it bounced back and forth between everybody.
Right.
No, but it will now only silence them
silence them
once.
once.
So what it's going to do is if you have 5 minions and the 2 champions, it's going to try to hit each one of those minions and the 2 champions. It's not going to bounce.
Right.
But before, like right now, I just played support Fiddlesticks a couple days ago. You could, like they were saying, you could hit it and it would bounce between one champion and a minion like 3 times, and that's what you were hoping for because they were silenced and it would chunk them.
It would
so
silence
before,
on each application.
on each one, and now it only silences them once. But yeah, that's a pot that actually is like a pretty big nerf. That'll affect more of the support Fiddlesticks, I think, than the jungle.
Well, it does silence for 0.05 seconds longer than it previously did.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Yep.
in the grand scheme of things, probably not that big a deal. But
Yeah, well, like what's 0.05 seconds when
it
it
could
would
be make
stun?
or break. I don't know how many times I've yelled about
Well,
1 second on something waiting on a cooldown. So who knows what
That's
0.05
fine,
seconds
but
is?
but again, it's 0.05 seconds as compared to before, where it could have been RNG like 4 seconds.
Right.
That's a huge difference. So this, in my opinion, that regardless if they jumped
I don't
up
think
by
the
0.05
duration
seconds, it's still a big
matters.
nerf.
Yeah, I don't think that
Only
the
for those
duration
times.
really makes up for the actual change in the ability. The change in the ability is actually a
It's-
pretty big nerf.
It's
was-
a nerf
it was
on the
rare to get those
RNG
numbers.
lottery
yeah.
of this
Right.
champion.
Even without that, most of the time you hit a champion
More
more
than
than once.
Mhm.
It wasn't even like a rare occurrence. Like there were many times that you
yeah.
hit a champion 2, 3, 4. I mean, it was just it was more often than not.
Even starting
And
on
they're
a minion.
eliminating that. And on one hand, it's like I'm all for the silence not being reapplied all the time. I wish that it wasn't prioritizing other champions, but I understand why they do. That's not a terrible thing either. I just happen to play support, and I just happen to wanted to bounce like 5 times on one person. So I think it's actually a really good thing for jungle Fiddlesticks in terms of it hitting more targets, and like it would be good for his team fight because
But
you're
Weren't
going
you
to
putting
hit more
2 or 3
champions and
points in
silence
queue
them.
early?
Well,
Just out of
the-
curiosity for jungle
What, in
Fiddlesticks.
support?
the jungle,
No.
Or in jungle.
no, for jungle, the jungle Fiddlesticks wasn't having an issue in the jungle right now. He's still one of the best junglers with like the recent, patch changes. He was still one of the better junglers because out of every jungler that's in there with all the changes, he didn't have anything to fear. He was like in that pretty good spot, well, amazing spot that Warwick was kind of in, not at that level per se, but he wasn't going to get killed by a buff or a camp when his drain was up. It wasn't going to happen. If he had blue buff, he's going to be full health regardless if he's, starts the camp at 1/5 of his health or 3/4 of his health or whatever. So
You only
You're not-
max E early in support.
Yeah.
And that's for just the damage and the
Right.
poke out of it. When you're coming out of the jungle, I mean, this is a good thing for the jungle. If you're in a team fight and you can get that and it's going to hit 4 out of the 5 champions, I mean, if you think
Right.
about it, team fights are over like that. I would rather have 4 people silenced for, 1.25 seconds than to have 1 person silenced for 3 seconds.
right.
So, and I mean, there is an application for it even in support. Like if they're standing back, which they tend to do against a Fiddlesticks, and you can eat their caster minions, and most likely it'll get to them. Whereas before, sometimes it came back forward, and then they could run away and not get hit.
That's
So it's not a
deliberate.
terrible thing. It's just anyone who plays a lot of Fiddlesticks is gonna notice this, and is really gonna have to get used to it. But I think team fighting, this is gonna be great.
In the chaos of battle, yeah. Because if you're just laning against Fiddlesticks, or if he comes into your lane, if you know how to play against Fiddlesticks, you shouldn't get hit by Dark Wind more than once.
I'm gonna say in team fighting it is gonna be great sometimes, but there's also those occasions where you eat the tank, it bounced to the AD carry, and then kept bouncing back and forth between whoever in the AD carry, and it took them out of the fight. Like,
Yeah, well, silencing a mage for 3 seconds is greater than silencing 5
Saying-
people for 3
Right,
seconds.
but it was
Yeah.
random.
Depending,
Right.
it really depends on
Well,
the
But that
mage.
was
Okay,
a huge
it's-
RNG thing. So
Oh,
now
right,
at least
absolutely.
it's
you're
gonna be it's going to be more consistent, but you also with it being more consistent and hey, a bunch of people are silenced, there are plenty of times where the RNG just happened to roll the dice in your favor massively, and it completely took somebody out of the fight that was, a high priority target or whatever else. So like that one move in itself may have completely won that team fight just based on, hey, you run into the fight, you're up against a Syndra, you ult in, she silenced the entire time.
Yeah, sure.
That's
The
huge.
thing about that is, though, like Fiddlesticks is an all-in champ. He's not a poke champ, so the fact you're not going to be standing way back, and hopefully the tank isn't standing next to the ADC where you can bounce it off them like that. Anyway, your goal as Fiddlesticks is to get in the middle of the team,
Right?
And if you can silence those four, if a Fiddlesticks gets off a good ult and lands in the middle of your team, that's not a sustained fight. That's not a 5-second fight. So it's better to get everybody or as many people as you can and not have that CC. Even if you silence tank, how many tanks out there have CC on them? Like it'll just give you it's not necessarily a bad thing. Yes, it won't chunk one person. But again, jungle Fiddlesticks, you're not maxing E, so it really probably isn't chunking them early anyway. This way you can kind of eliminate a lot of threats all at once, and you're an all-in champion. You don't want to be sitting back and, if you're standing in front of the team and you're shooting your E at tanks, then you're not hiding and you're not going to get a good ult off. Like they shouldn't even see you until you jump over a wall.
No, okay, hold on. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop this conversation because we've been talking too much about Fiddlesticks. We have too much to get to. Really, at this point, the argument comes down to RNG. I think we all agree with both of your points. If the RNG god's in your favor, the old one's great, and if the RNG gods are in your favor, the new one's great, right? We can sit here and argue about it all day, but I want to move on to the next points. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's
both,
fine.
But
That's okay.
Way to move it along.
yes. Galio, Idle Durand, huge buff to Galio. I honestly think Galio right now is in a great spot and should be played more, especially
Top
in
lane?
mid. No, mid. Because AP Assassins, I said the Assassin era is coming to an end, but that's because people, I should have said AD Assassins are coming to an end because AP Assassins are becoming more prevalent now because of double Morella Namicon or just Morella Namicon in its own. Galio really nullifies all of those with his wave pushing ability and his magic resist. So Idle Durand's taunt is no longer reduced by tenacity.
Well, you know what? I think the reason for this is because the Elixir of Iron was kind of like a nerf to Galio, because now people can stack tenacity. But my question is, champions like Aurelia, Ionian Fervor, are passive, where it reduces duration based on how many champions around her. It's not called tenacity. It's not tenacity, I don't think. It's just her passive. So will she still be able to run out?
One person in the entire game that can do it?
Yeah. Can she? I'm curious to see.
So she's like, yeah. No, but she...
I'm looking it up.
Is it considered tenacity on Aurelia?
No.
Looking it up.
It's just the name of her passive.
Is this just because it's something that he has to channel? Because when you think about like Leona, all like hers is reduced by tenacity. The slow on Morg's ult is reduced. All of those things. All of essentially every other crowd control is reduced by tenacity. So
those are instant? You're right.
Well, Morg isn't. Right? Morg's slow. Like that's actually if you buy tenacity against Morg, it's actually a good thing because you can get out of her ult hopefully before she stuns you.
She can move while she's using it. Yeah,
that's true. That's why I was asking: is it because he's in that position?
I
think it's definitely the reason why. I'm surprised it didn't work like this from the beginning.
Aurelia's passive isn't considered tenacity.
No,
yeah, I mean, it only makes sense that if he's standing in one spot the entire time and he can't do anything else, then everyone else should be stuck in there too. It always seemed weird to me that everyone else could just leave due to tenacity, and Galio was stuck there like, hey guys, come back.
Yeah, I guess his ult does channel more like a suppression than it does a normal taunt or CC. So
yeah, now in AoE, I guess I don't know if this counts as a suppression now. It doesn't say so, but an AoE suppression would be really powerful. So
right, it's not a suppression, but it kind of works more like one in terms of like your Warwick and your Malzahar, where you can't move when you're
Rammus taunt is not reduced by tenacity because it's stun, fears, and slows, right?
Right. Right. I don't believe his taunt is reduced by tenacity.
Are you sure?
Somebody
Looking it
without
up.
a mechanical keyboard, give me
I'm
exactly.
looking it up.
I need a quieter keyboard, damn it.
Yeah, you would be both. There's like a lot of times here.
Yeah. But tenacity is... All right, here we go.
Hold on.
Stand by.
League of Legends wiki. Sorry, guys, anybody listen to this. We have to look this up now because I feel like we should know this already.
Yeah,
but
we-
don't.
That says Rammus taunt is reduced.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
According to the Bow Bow. Thank you, the Bow Bow. If you're right.
I'm pretty sure it is reduced.
I'm pretty
I
sure.
I always thought it was.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Sorry, guys.
Why is this
We're
not
all
working?
Googling at this point to make sure because this is something that needs to be answered. Rammus is taunt, enemy, champion, or monster. Yeah, but tenacity doesn't affect taunts, right?
Then why would they specify it for Galio here?
Right. I think it does affect taunts. I think
Yeah,
this
it has
is,
to.
It's just
I think the only thing
35% crowd
tenacity
control
doesn't
reduction.
affect is suppressions.
It definitely affects taunt.
It affects everything other than suppression, and that's the only reason I was questioning maybe what their
Yeah, it's crowd
reasoning
control
behind
reduction. That's
just
what it is.
this. You know, this is the only crowd control other than suppressions in the game now that isn't affected by tenacity. And I just think that's worth noting. Even if, there's a good reason for it, it is worth noting that this is the only one that's not affected by tenacity other than suppressions now.
Yeah, here's the list. Stun, slows, taunts, fears, silences, blinds, polymorphs, and immobilizes.
The only other one is knockups aren't affected by tenacity either.
Right. Yeah. You.
Right.
But the stun after it.
Okay, interesting. I think you make a good point here in that he's immobile. He cannot cast anything else. He cannot do anything during that point. Even Rammus can drop his shield while somebody is taunted without the taunt being removed. So he is gaining some effect during that point if he decides to not press W early. So
I see this more as a quality of life thing than a big buff. I don't think this will make, oh my god, Galio must pick mid now. But it's nice.
Well, let's move on. Jarvan. Cataclysm fixed a bug where Jarvan would sometimes fail to do damage if he was killed quickly after landing from Cataclysm. Just a nice bug fix. What do you say about that? Like, congratulations, you get your damage no matter what now. Jax buffs. And who is excited for Jax buffs?
This guy.
Yay.
Not me.
No.
Back to ban prison, buddy.
Counter
Bot
Strike.
laners everywhere are crying.
Cooldown cooldown has been reduced at most. I think it's kind of like up in the air what you would max second, either E or Q, and it really depends what your role in the game is. Because most people max W first.
Oh, yeah.
But then it was Q for burst or E if you wanted more stuns because cooldown was always reduced with the rank you put in it. Now it's reduced even more. So to give you an example, at rank 1 it used to be 18. It is now 16. At rank 6 it is now 8 from 10 so he can get them off more quickly. Stuns. Yay, more stuns. We're all excited for that.
And the more often he can cast that, the more
Yeah.
attacks he can dodge. So
It isn't just more stuns, it's more mitigation.
Yep.
That's huge.
In addition, with the next buff he got,
Yep. Tanky Jax.
Grandmaster's Might bonus armor is now 20, 35, 50 with 0.5 attack damage ratio. It used to be 25, 30, 45 with 0.3. So more, he gains more armor with the more attack damage he has at a greater ratio.
Right.
Bonus
but he
magic
loses some
resist.
early.
Correct. Bonus magic resist
A
20,
tiny
35, 50. It used to be 25, 35, 45 with a 0.2 ability ratio. So same thing. He just gains.
Same.
He just gains more at max rank than he did early magic resist.
Yep.
But
I thought this was a strange change because I think we could all agree Jax is really good late as is, right?
right.
So what Riot is saying is, all right, Jax's laning phase is so bad that his late game power isn't strong enough for how bad his laning phase
Let's
is.
ramp it up.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make his laning phase even worse, and then make his late game even better. It just made no sense to me. I would think you want to go in the opposite direction and make his laning phase a little bit better.
We did see what happened when his laning phase was even or better than half the other people.
It was
in top lane.
terrifying.
Yeah, he's
I'm not gonna, as an AD carry, I'm not arguing here. I just find it strange. I mean, he's squishier at level 6 now.
But okay, so when we're looking at Jax, we look at all these changes. We look at the meta like we talked about on Monday. Is Jax really going to make a comeback though? Can he fight the Lissandras? Can he fight the?
Yeah, it all depends on the top lane meta.
Can he fight the Nars?
You
which
could jungle
right now
him
is
now.
a top 3. No, he can't fight. He can fight Maokai. That's not a problem. That's a skill matchup, really. Can you dodge the E from Maokai? Then yeah, absolutely. But Lissandra, he's going to get poked out. Rumble gets a few levels into him, and it's not even a fucking problem because you're eating Flame Spitter when you're stunned. And Nar's going to poke you out with the range. So
against Rumble, it really depends on if the Rumble player knows the matchup because he can absolutely brutalize it. But
does this make Jungle Jax?
That's what I just said, you son of a bitch.
I didn't hear you.
Guys, does it make Jungle Jax better?
I don't know. I think it does.
That maybe
Question.
Jungle Jax
I give
would
up.
be good.
I don't even want to talk about it. I hate all
I don't know.
Answer that question.
I'm going to be a little innovative and think outside the box. I think Jungle Jax.
Oh, I like
Claude,
that.
you make a really
Yeah.
good point at
You
this
can all
point. You know
fuck
what?
yourselves.
We really should listen to Claude when he brings up a point. So
I
Jungle
agree.
Jax, now you can max E second to get more stuns and more mitigation on the jungle, which makes you healthier to gank. Guys, I think Jungle Jax is the way to go right now.
That's a good point, Adam. I'm
Never
glad you
thought
thought
about
about that.
Thank you.
I think that I don't think Jax was ever in like a terrible place. I think he got nerfed and people went away from him as one of those overreactions. But I don't think he was ever in a bad place. He was still strong, and I still think that in lane you would want to max Q because it's his only escape. And when you think about like jungle ganks and things like that,
you
or
say max
engaging, it's
Q?
still
You don't
decent
need to max
poke
Q.
and stuff. So
Or
I
Q
just think
seconds.
that it's
Q second. It was Q second for more burst, W first for lower cooldown and more.
oh
damage.
right.
Well,
But the cooldown on Q goes down with levels
You know what I
too.
meant.
Yeah, it does.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew what you meant. Just making sure.
Yeah.
The thing is with the reduction on the E, it came down to, hey, you just went in with your Q and used E to get a stun or whatever. If you're running back and you didn't instantly die, is kind of either does your Q come up first or does the mitigation come back
Well,
up?
in lane, it was if you're bullying, you max Q. If you're not, you max E, which pretty much, I mean, second. It was always, we're talking second because Q was for extra burst damage.
E means you
and-
could trade with less damage taken more.
Right, more often. So,
Except the mana
I
cost
still
used to
think
be
Jax
really
is
high.
terrifying. I still think he should be played. I think people should look into playing him out of the jungle. He might have. I don't. With these Counter-Strike changes, being able to get that 2 second, earlier Counter-Strike off when you're walking through, that
Less
will
damage taken.
probably mean the difference between killing Krugs and having to go back after blue, and be able to take 3 champs and go back and get your blade. You know what I mean? Like that 2 seconds can mean that you have Counter-Strike up every time you go to a minion camp.
Well, and an item like God, I can't even think of the name. The smitem that slows on active.
Challenger Smite,
Stalker's Blade.
Yeah, Stalker's Blade. That's just more hits that you're potentially getting on somebody else that you're getting more passive procs off, and
getting
you're
more
hitting it with
stun-
W.
Yep.
So I mean, it's one of those things. People running away from Jax. Yeah, you can stun them, but if you can't stick to them, it's an issue. Now you can come out of a lane, stick to them, and just murder them.
Well, let's talk about Jace here. W Hypercharge. Hypercharge now goes on cooldown after the 3rd shot has been cast rather than right when you press it. Cooldown has now been decreased 13-11-9-7-5 from 14-12-10-8-6.
Right. So it's like a 1 second nerf to the cooldown if you think about how long it takes to get 3 shots off.
Yeah. It's a stop tier from being stacked so quickly from a mid, running back to lane. You probably get an extra minute on your tier stack by this change. So minor change. I'm gonna skip Jinx because it really is just it's a visual update. Kennen, I like this change to Kennen, and I would not be surprised to see people play Kennen more often because of this. Electrical Surge now checks for viable targets on the beginning of the cast rather than the end, meaning more players get
It's going to be more responsive.
more responsive. Slicing Maelstrom is R. The time between strikes is now 0.25 seconds from 0.5 at rank 1. And it's even faster at rank max rank, which was 0.33. It's now 0.25. The time between strikes in the same person is now 0.5 seconds at all ranks, which used to go down. And then they clear up the tooltip. But just changing how quickly you're stacking your passive by having it, I think brings Kennen back into viability, either mid or top. I don't, pick a lane, play him how you want. But he was really used
Jungle
for his
Kennen.
utility. No, he was
Get the
used for his
stuns off my
utility previously because he could stack his passive really quickly. But when you have it, and you can get it on more champions more quickly, it's kind of like Day's argument earlier with Fiddlesticks. The more champions that have the passive on him, the more viable you are in a team fight.
It'll make his stun more reliable.
More reliable on multiple
While
champions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see him coming back into favor from just this buff.
But what about Jungle Jacks?
I think his buffs actually would make him a little better in the jungle.
Good thoughts. All right, we talked about
I
Lucian.
you stop. Just stop it. I'm really
It took
sad.
forever for Chira to
No, I just don't.
He's
I
really
wasn't even
sad.
gonna do anything, and then I just.
All right, you know what? Let's make me sad too. Let's talk about Pantheon.
Yep.
This
Let's
should
kill.
make you
Let's
kind
kill
of
all of
happy.
your hopes and dreams for the future of this.
His Pantheon's base attack speed, which was 0.679, is now 0.625. So 0.054 seconds worse. But his attack frame animation, where he winds back and hits you with a spear, has been increased by 26%.
So when he starts his attack, he attacks more quickly, but the time
Slightly
in between
compensates.
auto attacks is slower. Let me say that again. When he starts his attack, he attacks more quickly, but the time in between he gets attacks off is longer. Wrap your head around that one.
But
The obvious implication for the later, quicker attack after he starts his attack would be more responsive last hitting. But the actual base speed seems like a significant nerf to jungle clear. Is that correct?
I don't know how significant 0.054 is going to be as far as his jungling. That's what they're trying to hit, is the fact that he soaks so many hits from the big monsters in the jungle because of his passive. He just cues it more. I guess you're going to have one less. Maybe that clutch one. You're like, oh, I wish I had a block.
Will notice how quickly his auto attacks get off now. There was a while ago, and the video is gone at this point, but I was streaming some like Silver 5 jacks when I was leveling my Smurf up, and I missed a couple auto attacks because I expected it to go off before it did. Because like you said before to Claude earlier this week, or Pantheon, sorry. Yeah. He kind of winds back and holds his spear and then throws it. Like I'm over exaggerating.
But it does feel slow.
But it feels slow.
But that's going to feel faster, though. That part's going to feel faster.
I think it helps him a little bit if you're playing him in lane, especially if you're against a melee champion and you can orb walk if you're effective with it. I think it would help a little bit in that area.
Yeah, I don't.
Just your damage coming out faster in general.
This doesn't make me sad because of that wind-up speed increase. So I'll have to play. I haven't played him yet. On this patch, I played one game today. It was a custom with Sejuani, and that's it. But
oh my God, we have
I'll have
so
to
many
feel
more
it.
changes to go through. And
Yeah.
we are like hitting our mark. All right, let's keep going. Rengar. Oh dear. Bone-tooth necklace active no longer benefits from cooldown reduction. Oops.
I never noticed that.
All right, that's funny.
I didn't either. I
All
played
right,
a lot
so
of
Sejuani buffs. Big changes, big awesome buffs in my opinion for Sejuani here, which it's really a shift to power. I think that Claude was the one to bring that up before, not on the podcast, but talking privately. It's a shift to power with a big buff on her Q for the amount of damage, because her Q literally does double damage now. Just the initial damage went from 40 to 80 at level 1. For example. But I think the biggest change with all of this is her base mana went from 287 to 400.
She can actually use her abilities now.
Huge.
Yeah, that is just absolutely gigantic. So let's just go through this. Arctic
That's
Assault,
big.
Q no longer does a percentage of life damage when it smacks, so you can no longer smack 3 people and do a percentage of life damage. However, the initial damage is higher at every single rank.
To make up.
80, yeah, to make up for it. Flail of the Northern Winds got the percentage of health damage on its first attack on a single enemy. So now it does percentage targets max life when you use it. And the mana cross is decreased with every point you put into it. The area effect damage has also been lowered because it's doing percentage of health damage. Makes sense. You're doing big chunks of damage up first. You don't need to be doing tons of damage over time. Permafrost, however, has ate the nerf because of that. You can cast Permafrost more often for less damage and a smaller slow, but that's because you got a giant mana buff.
I think
Right.
what this helps kill is the AP Sejuanis who do the quick Q to get in range, R, and then E for the burst and kill everybody. Now Q to get in range, R, E, wait 6 seconds, E, and then you had the damage you had before. So, it kills that initial instant burst, but for jungling, moving around in longer team fights, tanking up on the front line, it's
So
a little.
you're obviously
it's
going to
better.
start Q in the jungle with her, right? Because that's 80 damage straight off.
W
No,
still better.
you start W
Is it going to do more damage because percentage? I mean, are you starting
It's-
with the big monster? If you start
because the
Gromp or whatever,
cooldown
you're gonna
reduction.
It's the
And
CDR,
the
but the
damage as
W it damages for a pretty lengthy period of time.
Right. So
I still
What
think
I think
that-
what Pon was asking was what to take at level 1.
Yeah,
I think we want to max W first, but
Yeah,
the
you take-
base
you-
damage reduction on W at rank 1 seems, and I'm
Still
not
take-
sure.
you still take W at level 1 because then look at the area effect damage. Sure, the base was halved, but it still adds an additional total health to it.
And it's moving the total health damage from Q to W basically.
Yeah, but the
Right.
thing
It
about
always had that.
percent of
Right.
max health damage is it sucks early game. Like
Yeah.
nobody has health to early game. It's better. I mean, that's a lot of damage
Except for
if
the
you're
bigger
maxing
minions.
Q and you go into lane and you like knocks. If you
If you
do
smack
that,
somebody, it hits hard.
yeah, I mean that hurts a lot more than your W.
Well,
is
the
going
Q-
How
to.
much health? How much health does like the blue buff have? The Sentinel starting at level 1, 600 something, 7, 8.
Wait,
I don't know,
blue
but-
buff, it has way more.
I'm not
than-
saying you
it's like-
should take
it's
Q
over like
level
1100.
I was going to say blue buff has like
I'm just
1250.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
let's
just saying that Q would be really powerful in terms of ganking
Well,
and
and
coming
here-
out of the jungle.
The other thing with Q, the Q got better early. That is just without a doubt. It's much better early. People don't have the magic resist. It's going to do more flat damage than the percentage
Right.
health damage, and people don't have that extra health to make that percent health damage really that worthwhile. So yeah, Q does hit.
Right,
it's
but
gonna
I
hit
do
much
think you
harder.
start W in the jungle just
Yeah.
because
You're
AoE
right.
in the jungle is always gonna,
Well, the other
it depends
issue.
where you start. Let's be honest here. Okay, so Flail of the Northern Winds has 11-second cooldown at level 1, while Arctic Assault has a 15-second cooldown.
Yeah.
So Flail of the Northern Winds doing percent max health damage will do better, starting with, we'll say, the crumps. Coming to 217. The Krugs. But wouldn't you assume that like Arctic Assault doing 80 damage straight out with help from your bottom lane would do better on starting with the
golems?
Grump?
yeah,
Or
but
the
you
grump,
have
yeah.
help from your bottom lane on that. So
The
when you
grump.
go
Still need
start
it.
doing but when you start doing blue buff, you don't have that. So
Just
I
to
don't see why
correct-
you wouldn't want the AoE because you're not going to hit.
I guess
level
doesn't
2
really
off of
matter.
that.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you start if you
No.
need help.
Yeah, I just think that leveling that max and Q, like in terms of ganking, would
It's
be
gonna
really
be-
really powerful early.
No,
Yeah,
it's
right.
not
Be
more
the
damage.
equivalent-
Q is not more damage now. It's less damage. Okay, it was 40. It's double damage as far as its base damage, but it had the percent health
It's more
scaling.
damage early.
It's more damage
it's
in the
less
early
damage
game.
late.
You're getting
Yeah,
a bigger
Q-
benefit out of maxing it
Hold
in
on.
the early game than you would
No.
late.
Yeah, percentage
okay.
of max health
Enemy
is not
champion.
nearly as powerful early game as it is late game.
Right, but look at, okay, let's say the old Arctic Assault, okay? It was 40 damage plus 4% rank 1 of the target's maximum health, okay? Let's say you're ganking a squishy target with 500 health at level 1, okay? That is 200 damage. I'm sorry, not 200, 500
was like-
times 0.04. Okay,
Which is 20 damage.
That's 20 damage, right?
So you're doing
Yeah.
Okay,
60
so on a
damage.
Yeah, I
really,
think
really
that you
squishy
max-
target, you're doing 60. You're doing 20 less damage at level 1. But you're not going to gank them at level 1. You're going to gank them at level
3.
3 or 4, depending on when
so
you
you're
go back.
doing the same
and get back
damage
in.
as you were doing before by
You're
Right,
doing
either.
slightly less.
It's not
damage.
It's not a buff. It's actually a nerf.
It's still a buff though, because every time that you level it, you're gaining significantly more damage. It goes 80, 125, 170, and it used to be 40, 70, 100. You are making up that damage by maxing Q early.
And
that
the
you
other
would
thing
have on the
is
W.
that ganking, there was a place for putting more points in permafrost before.
That's
Now
exactly,
it's a 1-point
burst.
wonder because of the slow. So you can max Q and then max W.
I don't know if I
And
agree
you're
with
not-
that.
But you don't, I mean, even if you want to go with permafrost, but you don't have to put a ton of early points in permafrost because you're not getting the 2.5 seconds slow anymore. It's just
I don't know.
1.5 seconds every rank.
I like
the cooldown
permafrost
drops tremendously though.
Yeah, it
Right.
almost halves.
That is
It's
true.
Yeah,
it
it
has
does.
the old cooldown with the nerf damage if you just put 1 point in it. So I would rank that second.
It opens this up to some experimentation. I think that this is going to be one of those situations where, like, if you're really good at landing your Q early on squishy targets, it's going to be one of those things where it's like you're playing somebody like Vi who maxes Q, and then you go and if you land that Q, very likely that person's going to die if you can get the gank off. You don't land the Q, and then you're beat. The thing is, if you max W and you miss that Q, but you're still next to them, you're still going to be doing that damage.
Right.
I
you're
don't
gonna be doing
think
the flail
that
damage.
using the defense of if you suck at what you're doing, I don't think that's a good defense. Like, just
It isn't a good defense, but I'm
to
just
get
saying
better
that's
at
a
landing your
realistic
Qs.
scenario.
And in terms of the permafrost cooldown, that's somewhat helpful in jungle.
Right.
But in terms of ganking, if you're ganking a lane every 6 seconds, then you're not farming at all. Like, that matters very little in terms of the ganking potential.
Well,
that she
it's
has.
more that if you get into a fight, say you started a fight in their bot lane, you get your ult off, you slow them, and then while they're retreating, you can use that permafrost one more time on the retreat, and that entire time your teammates are still following up in damage.
That's a hell of a chase. A 6-second chase, that's a long chase.
See, that's what I was thinking to say about permafrost too. Why am I maxing permafrost at this point? Because a
I
team
think
fight
that-
isn't going to last 6 seconds, or if it
No.
does, you get 2
It's
I
for
don't
the-
think you'd max it
It's
first.
for the damage because chances are you're using
But your
Q to
damage
close.
The
You're
damage
using
Damage got
Q
killed.
to close
The damage
distance,
got
not to
added.
hit them with it. You have to hit the enemy champion with Q, and unless
Or
you flash
W.
Q, you're not going to hit them with the damage
or
anyway.
R
So
works with E as well.
there's no real reason to rank Q for just for the damage because you use it more for the mobility to get in range.
Okay. So
and then
devil's
you
advocate,
get the
why
W.
wouldn't you put 2 points
Punch was
early
saying.
into Q? If you're going to gank, like, yeah, permafrost is great. You slow them down, it helps. But you're going to make them blow a flash if you're doing a straight 125 damage to somebody right when you go in there and knocking them up at the same time. You're going to force a flash. So why not invest a point, start W,
If you
and
hit them
invest
with
a
the
point
Q.
in Q. Yeah, if you hit a point with Q, which
I
you should
hate
be.
the arguments of, well, if you
that's-
suck at the champion, then
No,
No,
I
it's
don't
not-
suck at Sejuani, but I don't
well,
use Q
it's
just
hard.
to hit them.
This isn't for people who haven't played much Sejuani. Her Q is not the easiest thing to hit. It's not as far a range as you actually think it would be.
Use it to get in range to hit with your R, for example.
It will. It's a
But
little speed
We're
boost.
not talking about R. We're talking about early ganking Sejuani
Okay.
if you decide to
and
do
you,
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
You
ideal
really
to
gotta-
hit someone's Q. I know that sometimes you use flash to get in range of using things, but that's not the
Here's-
only purpose of it either.
Here's my argument with Sejuani. It's kind of like maxing Scion's Q. Okay, other than jungle because that's for jungle mobs, but for the gank enemy champion purposes, it's easy to not get hit by Scion's Q, unless you set it up with all its other stuff. Sejuani, it's easy to not.
I don't agree
get
with
hit
that at
by
all
that
because
Q.
it's easy not to get by Morgana Q. Same thing, even though it's got a giant fucking truck of a hitbox and it moves at 1200 speed. It's
But
still
Sejuani
easy
doesn't have a
not
big
to get by that.
hitbox.
No,
Right.
it does have a hitbox. But here's the problem: when you do any kind of change to a champion, when you think about any champion, you have to assume equal skill. So what's equal skill when you're in lane? Where are we starting with this argument? Are we starting challenger? Or are we starting bronze?
No. Here's what we're saying.
Answer my question: Are we starting challenger? Or are we starting bronze with
Let's
this
say
argument?
challenger. Okay.
If challenger, then you're not hitting Q. And if you
Okay.
hit Q, it's because you outplayed that person you hit them.
Okay. Well, let's say equal level. Let's say we're going for Qs. Whatever. My argument, if you'd let me finish here, is
I wanted to make sure we were
hold
starting
on.
with the right.
It's
argument
irrelevant.
Style.
It's
No,
irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant
Because yes, it is. It's irrelevant to what my point is. If you let me finish here. Okay. Now you're ranking Q, banking on the fact that you're going to hit every single one, or you're going to hit that one in the gank. If you don't, you just fucked yourself because your permafrost does 60 damage. Okay. Let's say you're ranking E. You don't hit the Q. He doesn't get the knockup, but the W goes off
It's
and
going
hits him
off
with
the
the
entire
AoE
time.
around him, which 9 times out of 10 is what happens to get them slowed. Then you hit the E permafrost.
But it's the only
If you
initial
get-
hit damage. Is the initial hit. The initial auto attack hit does the 4% life damage. It's not the area effect damage that's doing percentage
Right.
of life. It's the initial
And-
hit.
But
and listen,
doing
if you
percentage of
put
life.
the
Oh, wait a
1
second.
point in permafrost and you still get all of the point, you can still max
rank-
Q and then W, and you can still get all of that damage that you want from W. It's just a matter of your early game ganking, which
the area effect damage does do percentage health.
Here's what it
that's
is.
true.
what I would like to do, I would rank E Permafrost over W if you're going for just pure ganking prowess or whatever the case. You want I used to, and I probably still will, just get 2 points in W for the jungle, and then E is what I rank prioritize. EW, and then Q you just use for its utility. They're making it a little bit more enticing with the extra damage per rank that you get, because it's pretty significant, 80 to 125 to 170. It jumps 50 points, which is nice. But if you're just like, okay, I have that feeling, okay, I rank Q, I really have to hit them with my Q in order for me to make up for the damage I lost by not ranking E.
Well, if you're going to go by that, if you're going to go solely by, okay, I'm just going to continue to max E like I have been, then if you look at this, is a nerf to her early game, because even though it's on a longer cooldown, there are no ganks early game that you're gonna be there and fighting for 6 seconds. It's just not going to happen. Either you kill them, they burn a flash, or you're done. Yeah, and then your damage is significantly lower, and now you don't have this scaling slow. So why would you put? It's all about you put points into an ability early because it's good for the early game. If this is no longer the most optimal thing for the early game, why are you still putting the points in it? Right. Essentially, if you're looking at it that way, it's a nerf to her early game. If you are going to continue to play with maxing E first, it's a nerf to her early game, because it took a whole ton of stats away from her.
And then if you max Q, it's a nerf to her entire game now, unless you flash and hit it every single time.
I'm gonna say,
unless they see you coming and they're like, I'm just gonna stand here, and let you hit me with your Q. I'm telling you, I would not rank Q first if I were you.
You know what? With all this entire argument, though, I think it comes down to, do you need to completely rank something all the way first? I think there's a ton of champions out here where, even when Sejuani was first remade, I said you should put 2 points early into Q, because before it was 70 damage. I mean, that's a big chunk of damage to get. And I know DeClaude's argument right now is you cannot always land Q. That is a legitimate argument. I'm not, going to deface it. But I would say even in platinum level, if you're walking out of there, you're going to hit your Q on somebody and force the flash. You're not ganking unless you hit the Q. And if you're not hitting the Q, you're hitting R. 6 to gank, okay? So why are you ganking pre-level 6 if you can't hit the Q?
And her R, and maybe there's a slight difference in the way you play in terms of the way you hit your abilities. Maybe instead of using Q as a gap closer to hit your R, I mean, R has a decent range. I played a lot of Sejuani for a while. You hit the ult, and then you go and you Q into them, and you do everything else.
That's ideal. That is ideal. And if they're set up for that.
There's so many people get really caught, and I don't jungle a lot. I don't, so I can't say that. But there's ways in every game. There are routes in every game. If wards solved the world problems, then junglers wouldn't be needed.
Right.
There are ways in every game to get in a situation where you can land your skills. And
definitely. It's just
the Q is going to hit more often than it's not going to hit. It's not like a 1 out of 10 times you're going to be able to hit your Q. But if you're still taking the permafrost, you're losing a ton of damage. If you're maxing, I'm not saying don't get it early. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're maxing that early, you're gimping your entire early game.
Realistically,
you used to do that for the damage and the utility. Now you're getting neither.
Realistically, I see kind of one of the more optimal paths would be to start W, get a point in Q at level 2, get your E, and then put another point in Q, gank with that. You have 2 points in Q, and then you're going to max W off that. Realistically, that is what's going to happen, regardless of the 15 fucking plus minutes we've spent arguing back and forth.
Yeah, it's funny.
One way or another.
Well, people are going to listen to this. People are going to listen to this entire argument and think that we're like, well, you know what's funny is a lot of these arguments, because you got 5 people sitting here arguing like we're in a bar or whatever, is there's a lot of points that don't get pushed out there. And I think between Days and my argument with DeClaude is that we're not maxing either of those abilities. We're dumping a couple early points like Chira just set in for reasons, whatever it may be.
There are reasons.
Damage, extra ganking.
I get both sides of this argument. I'm like middle of the fence, but more on DeClaude's side, because I've played a fuckload of Sejuani jungle, and that Q with the range and everything else, there are some times where you just get in enough range to be able to hit a minion with your W and then E, and that completely changes everything. Sure. Like you cannot, or WW or whatever. I would rather have that damage of, oh, I didn't hit them with my big burst.
It's more reliable.
But he is
yeah,
not
it's more
doing
reliable
any damage anymore. It's not
no,
even.
and
Yes,
that's fine.
It's not that bad. Look at the
barely-
damage. Old
it's
damage.
40 less
60 at
damage.
rank 1. New damage. 60 at rank 1.
but it's by rank 3, it's doing significantly less damage. 40 damage at rank 3 is a significant amount of damage that is losing.
And then 80
Yeah,
at
40
rank 5.
damage at
All
rank
I'm
3,
saying
right.
is that in terms of like maxing it shouldn't be maxed early. I
No.
think that
I agree with that.
significantly hurts your early game in terms of, I get the cooldown, but there are no ganks in early game at all that are going to last that long. If they are, I don't even know why people are staying around and lane that long, but it doesn't happen.
If they are, it's a guaranteed death for the.
Oh, absolutely.
whoever's
If they
getting
are,
ganked,
but
though.
nobody does that.
I
like,
really do
nobody
agree with
gets
Chira.
ganked and then stands there.
I really do
It's-
agree with Cheer at this point, where it's 2 points early in the queue, getting every one of your abilities, then maxing W after that point to
I'm
continue
okay
your
with
clear.
that.
So
I really disagree with maxing.
I see
you know
it-
what? I am happy that we actually had this entire argument. We screamed at each other because we have not screamed at each other. In probably
haven't had
30
that.
episodes.
I see it for the like I said, for the reliable damage. You're looking at all the numbers. You're sitting here math crafting it and theory crafting, going, okay, blah blah blah. Look at the damage, blah blah number. I'm looking at real
From an
world
application
practical scenario,
standpoint,
application standpoint. Okay, if I don't hit that Q, it's not that bad. You know, it's actually pretty good. I'm gonna get that
Well, if you don't
constant,
hit that Q,
reliable,
are you hitting
slow.
your W
I'm
or
gonna
your
get.
E?
Well,
I'm gonna get
you
good
could
damage.
be, depending if
I don't
something-
feel like
Hold on, stop.
You're gonna hit it
we're
more often
30
than
minutes past the point. We still have a fuckload of patch notes to go through, and we're not gonna make it through tonight. Like, I want to argue about this. I want to spend an hour on Sejuani, but realistically,
God, you know what's funny? You did say a while ago we would never discuss Sejuani again, and see what has happened. Do you see the spike that this boar lady has driven
Sejuani
into
is
our
bristling
show?
here,
We,
you know.
we have to wait till Monday to go over this podcast. Like, we're literally just pushing.
We
through this.
have to actually.
Yeah. No, let's go
because-
through the rest of the champions. Let's talk about the rest of the champions, and then we'll cut it off there. We'll talk about towers. We'll talk about Baron. We'll talk
Other
about the rest of patch 4.21. I know I said earlier in the podcast we won't do it, but I did not expect us to spend fucking 15 minutes yelling at each other about Sejuani.
Yeah.
So,
Was it only 15 minutes?
just,
It
I
might
know,
have been
punch
longer.
him. You're like,
The,
oh,
the
God.
best part is the punch is like sitting back like, I've never played Sejuani. Fuck it. I'm not
I
going to
have
say a
played
goddamn
Sejuani. I
thing.
played a lot of Sejuani, but I don't want to contribute to this shit fest. I'm leveling W first. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, there you go.
No,
There you
you're
go.
putting 2 points early. All right, fine.
No, fuck you.
Shen change. Shadow dash. Energy cost now down to 100. That's his E. His taunt is now down to 100 from 120. Shen, I think, is a really good jungler at this point. Does this make him better out of the jungle?
I was thinking laning. He's a pretty good lane bully. But again, against the current top lane meta champions, I'd see it being hard to play him there. So yeah, let's stick with jungle.
Yeah, I like him out of the jungle at this point.
Support
I
Shen.
think he is a really safe jungler. I think as long as you have good map awareness, that you can do well. And plus the changes to jungle items, keep him relevant. Unlike Warwick, who is completely out of the mix at this point.
Oh, God, I can't wait to talk about that.
Shyvana changes to Shyvana. Cooldown of Twin Bite has been 10-9-8-7-6 and is now 9-8-7-6-5. So 1 second off every rank. So Twin Bite you get more often. Now Burnout now deals 20% magic damage to monsters.
Oh, God, that
Beautiful.
extra burn damage. Fuck the top lane. She's back in the jungle,
Oh, absolutely.
boys.
She's done out of top lane. Well, as soon as they started fucking with her percentage of life magic damage, out of E,
She's going to be back up there to like, I am Shyvana, the dragon that's going to clear my jungle faster than everybody else, and then I'll see you in your jungle. And I'm not going to die because I have my ult if bad stuff happens. And yeah, I'm Shyvana.
Yeah, I'm Shyvana.
I'm a dragon. I'm not that killable if there's walls in the way because LOL ult.
Well, let's just talk about a few others. I'm going to skip over Warwick because everybody at this point knows that Warwick is fucked. Like, they changed stalkers or whatever. They changed everything about
To be
the jungle
honest,
items and everything with him.
It's interesting because I felt like just the changes to either Devour's one or the other would have been like pretty significant in smacking him down from his plinth above everyone
Then they
else.
add this.
And then they added the
Insult
other
to injury.
nerf. And it's like, wow, he's not that great now. I mean, I could still see him.
Well, okay,
working.
I'm going to
He's
leave
got
that as a teaser
fed.
for Monday's episode. 'Cause
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna
think we should
continue with
include
the-
that with all of the changes because
Okay,
part of
for
the
the
reason
items.
he got nerfed is the items itself themselves.
Because I want to talk about Soraka. I really want to spend some time on Yasuo because I have some thoughts on him as well, and Zac. And It says this patch is gigantic. So we'll be back on Monday with that. Sorry guys for spending 15 minutes of the podcast yelling at each other and punch making faces.
Oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. That had to have been.
But guys, what about Jingle Jacks?
Ooh, I didn't
I'm
think
out.
about that.
I'm done. I quit.
Oh, Jungle Jacks. Let's go over those changes again.
All right, so Jax, as ending this podcast, this episode number 218 of the Trinity Force podcast. We are ending it right now, guys. Check out ProLeague Games, bit.ly/T-Force game. Peace.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Night.